pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Town Council meeting of 2020-19 is called to order. So, and just a note, in the interest of social distancing and Governor Mills' social distancing limitations, members of the public are strongly encouraged to participate electronically. And they join us. You can dial or log in. Time 6:15 Eastern Time. And join the Zoom meeting. All right. First order of business. Public announcements. Details may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. For the November 3rd, 2020 election, absentee ballots, applications are available online and via phone. Absentee ballots will be mailed when available in October. Non-emergency town services will be closed on Monday, October 12th, in observance of Indigenous Peoples Day. All right, second order of business is public hearings. That would be to hear from the public on proposed revisions to the General Assistance Order, state and statute updates. Is there any from the public that wishes to participate? All right, there being none, we move on to the third order of business. Public comments. Limit 3 minutes equivalent to public speaking. Members of the public may email comments for council at info@fairfieldme.com by 4 p.m. the day of the meeting on any topic or agenda item. Items may be read aloud at this time. Were there any items?
The only real item you have is the Acme Road, which Mr. Violet is here, that came up, and it was going to be more than a 3-minute conversation, so that's why that's on for tonight.
Yep. Okay, no problem.
Your workshop.
All right, then moving on to the fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. Town manager report.
Right, so 15th of September, we had a KBCOG board meeting to quickly discuss and go over their annual meeting that's going to be here tomorrow. Also on the 15th, the town treasurer and I had a conference call with First National regarding our investments and the Crawford Fund. It has ultimately led to some questions from their trust fund experts regarding the fund itself, and we're working on that research. But right now the fund is currently performing well, but we are still in the process of trying to make sure that that's in a more solid format so that its income every year is a guaranteed amount. So
Okay.
It's not subject to the whims of the market.
Right.
On the 16th, the fire chief and I attended a workshop at Somerset County Commissioners to answer questions regarding the request for TIF funds for the firefighter training facility. 17th, we put together a new proposal for SEP money. If you remember back a while, we were doing SEP money, which is SEP. That's the fine that businesses pay if there's an environmental violation in the area. This is not the railroad funds. This is a different set of money, but we have put in a request for an easement and separation of a catch basin work that we need to do here in town. So we'll see how that goes. The 17th also had a First Park Executive Board meeting. We have a General Assembly meeting here at this facility tomorrow night where folks can attend, GA members can attend in person or via Zoom. We're requesting most folks attend via Zoom. And we'll be discussing what the budget will potentially look like as we go forward with the T-Mobile TIF credit enhancement agreement expiring, and how basically it looks as though municipalities may very well will be able to break even, so that we will pay in but still get it all back at the end, but we're working on that. September 21st, which was this Monday, the Public Works Director and I walked the closed landfill with folks who are doing an environmental assessment for the solar project. Everything went well with that. Yesterday, I met the new representative from the Police Department's union, just as a reminder to our negotiating team that we meet Monday at 10 a.m. right here in this room. Also, for an update on our projects, we did receive word on Monday that the school did receive funding for the child care program to take place here at the community center, which is good. And then today I met with Garvin from Central Maine Growth Council to discuss the next steps regarding the town farm feasibility study. We'll be putting together some possible options for different paths to go forward. It'll be an ongoing project, so you'll continue to receive updates, but basically we're going to be concentrating on probably a planning grant and looking towards utilities on the 201 corridor for the first section, but there's a bunch more work that needs to be done with that. So we're going forward with that. And that is it for me. Anything else you're going to hear about later in the evening?
Anybody have any questions? No? Being none, all right. Next would be reports from committees.
There are none.
I just had my first meeting tomorrow for the Legislation Policy Committee, from 10 to 2,
When is that?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay. All right. So you'll be able to report on that the next
Yes.
meeting. All right, fifth order of business is the consent agenda. Now, these items are considered routine or standard business and therefore will be enacted by one motion unless a council member requests that the item be removed and acted as a regular action item on the agenda. The first item would be 20-12B, which is ordered the Fairfield Council hereby waives the reading of and accepts the minutes for meeting 2020-18 that was held on September 9th, 2020. Item 20-129, ordered that the Town Council hereby approves the Treasurer's Warrant Number 18 General Fund in the amount of $200,619.50, which is Harris Computer Systems, Huzzy Communication, KSTD, and Motor Vehicle. The third item would be 20-130, ordered that the Town Council hereby approves and signs a sewer certificate of commitment in the amount of $175,092.75 for the first quarter fiscal year sewer billing for the period of July 1st, 2020 to 9/30/2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Carries full. Moving into the sixth order of business, to take action on the following items of business. The first item is 20-131, which would be ordered that the Town Council hereby adopts the General Assistance Ordinance as amended.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Would you want to give a little explanation?
Sure. So the General Assistance and Welfare Program is overseen by DHHS, our state oversight agency, and we follow their ordinances and their appendices with the monetary updates annually. So there was an ordinance update, and that's related to state updates and the statute updates, as well as the annual appendices that we normally look at. Everything's available in my office and will be online. And for the most part, it keeps the town accountable, and it gives us apples to apples when we're calling if we have any questions. So if I have a case and there's nuances to it, we're looking at the exact same documents and following the exact same policies and not something that's out of date, and it keeps the town compliant.
Has they come out with any increases yet, or is just them come out yet?
That was in your packet, so I gave you 2019, 2020 to compare to 2020, 2021, and I actually wrote same for everything that stayed the same,
Okay.
and made a note of what the increases were, and there were all increases, there were no decreases. Occasionally, there's a decrease, but it's very rare. Most of the time, it is an increase. So that allows them a higher cap for eligibility for those that meet the thresholds.
Okay. Any more questions? Discussion? All in favor? Carries full. Moving on to item 20-132. Ordered that the Town Council hereby signs 2 quitclaim deeds to Traversion K. Clark for property located on off the Davis Road, map lot 009-001 and map lot 009-003.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions? All in favor? Item 20-133. Ordered that the town council hereby authorizes the treasurer to carry over $2,223.04 from year 2019/2020 election budget to be applied to the year 2020/2021 election budget.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right. Ordered that the town council hereby appropriates a sum to be determined to be taken from the undesignated fund balance to reduce the amount to be raised from taxation for the 2020/2021 fiscal year as per annual town budget meeting referendum warrant Article 31.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, questions?
Michelle, is this what this is all about?
That's what that is all about.
Okay.
So what you have before you is, bring it up in front of me right here, sorry. What you have in front of you is 6 different options, basically so you can see what it looks like. All right, so what you're going to be really looking at is the shaded box right here.
Yep.
Okay, this is where the undesignated fund balance is. In situation number 1, option number 1 starts with $250,000, simply because of the fact that that paving article that we had to do the in-town streets stated the fact that $250,000 would come from undesignated. So you know at minimum, you have to use that. So if you follow down through the columns, what you will see is then what the ranges is for the mill rate. And if it's plausible, let me see. I might be able to. There we go. So this section right here, down in there where it says .02291, .02406, that tells you where your mill rate needs to fall in order to use just $250,000. So clearly, if you want to keep the mill rate at 22.3, which is what we're currently at, you need to use more than $250,000. So if you go to scenario 4, which number is $550,000, you can use a mill rate of 22.3. And then the next number that you want to be cognizant of is your overlay, which is down here at the very bottom. And at $550,000, the overlay is 64,922.27, which is a 0.76%. By law, the overlay can never be more than 5%. So this overlay right here at 64,922 is very low.
Okay, so the overlay is the money that's left over when everything is paid?
Correct. Okay, because if, this formula to set the mill rate, obviously if you start at the very top, so folks at home can see it, is very, very large. And what happens is it never comes out exactly even as to how much money we need to raise. Okay? So the overlay is what's left, and the overlay is what you use to fund and pay for abatements. So say we tax someone and they they tore their garage down or whatever, and we missed it, then we would have to give them a refund. That's where that refund comes from, is the overlay. And then anything that's not used, of course, it just goes to the undesignated fund balance. That's where that goes back to.
So that decreases how much we get for taxation, or?
So keeping the mill rate the same at 22.3 gets you, basically, if you have the homestead exemption, $111 savings this year. Because the homestead exemption increased $5,000 per person, and the state of Maine only refunds us half of that value. So our homestead exemption that came off the top increased by $10 million this year. So when you think about that and how much we get back, it basically was a revenue loss of roughly about $150,000 because of the homestead exemption, because we have to make up that other half somewhere. Okay, so you could go a little bit higher than that. So in scenario 5, let's see what it looks like at 650,000. Gives you a little bit better of an overlay, which I think is probably more where you want to be at least.
What was the percent number that we had to be below?
You have to be below 5%.
Below 5%?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then you can use, in scenario 6, is the full $700,000 that you are authorized to use.
Which puts us where with the undesignated fund balance?
Puts us at using, it was half of what was available to you when we passed the budget this year, based upon last June 2019's fund balance. Our fund balance currently has grown, this is unaudited, we're currently looking at 4.9 million. We need just over 3 million, like 3,065,000 for 3 months of operation. So the fund balance is a little bit higher than where it was.
So that would give us about 300,000 over our 3-month commitment that we're required, that we need to keep.
Yeah. No, it would be more than that.
There's 4 and we took out 7, that leaves,
Okay. This is the last page in last year's town report. I thought I had brought it with me. So right here is where we did our basis. Okay, so this is
Can't
what.
read those numbers.
Okay, so it was 4,360,779 as of June 30, 2019. And as of the end, so when we put the budget together in December, January, what we needed was $3,056,943 for 3 months. That left you with available to use $1,303,836. So if you take 7 away from that, we've got,
About 400,000.
and then we've had an increase in fund balance of almost another 600,000. So that still puts us at almost $1 million more.
Okay, so that,
Okay.
all right,
Okay?
so that, all right, that
Now-
still leaves us in good shape.
Yes, it still leaves us in very good shape.
Okay,
Okay, so that still keeps our 3 months operating plus an additional $1 million.
okay.
Okay? So, and that's one of the reasons why we're making sure, because we're still trying to build that undesignated fund balance. So we didn't budget to take all of it.
Right.
You know, you want to make sure we still stay in state parameters, so that continues to grow a little bit, so we get a little bit healthier.
So we'll have enough if we take all of it, that 700,000.
Yes, you would have enough if you took all
That,
of
that
it.
still leaves us plus 1 million in our
Yes,
undesignated
if
fund
you took
balance
all.
beyond what we need for 3 months,
Yep, you would still have it. And then whatever you don't use
which would be.
just
we're
goes
look-
back to the undesignated fund balance.
Which we're looking at over 200,000
Yes, in that scenario.
in that scenario.
So if, looking at number 5, would we, or number 4, would we lower the tax rate, the mill rate?
No, you would keep it the same.
It's going to stay the same?
Yeah. Keep it the same. Which, considering the fact that you lost $10 million worth of taxable value with the homestead exemption, and you can keep the mill rate the same, is pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's very good.
Okay, so looking at numbers 1, 2, and 3, the overlay is in the negative?
In the negative. So basically, these were put together for you, and what I did is I just stepped up the undesignated fund in $100,000 increments. So I wanted you to be able to see and track the progression of it, but none of those are viable options. You cannot do that without raising the mill rate.
Okay.
You can't use that much from undesignated fund balance. So you could use, you could do,
So basically 4, 5, and 6 are the
Yep.
only viable options
Right.
for,
Yeah.
to keep the mill rate the same. You could, oops, sorry, not,
There's no way we can lower the mill rate, right?
no, and it was really kind of my hope, and there isn't.
Because all determines too much money.
Not
get
to be
back from the
safe.
state, which doesn't look good this year.
No.
For next year.
No.
Already.
No.
No, they're in trouble.
So as of right now, and one of the things that helped us too is because of the fact that typically, when I put your budget together, when we're looking at revenues for revenue sharing, because state revenue sharing has been unstable for many, many years, long before the recent events, we really only budget just a little bit more than what we actually received in the prior year, with a look at what the projections are, if they're even out, because typically the projections for the next coming fiscal year don't come out until March or April, and your budget's usually completed by February. So we kind of have an idea of what's going on, but we really look to see what we received in the prior year and budget accordingly. So our original revenue sharing projection was over $900,000. We only budgeted using $600,000. So it's still up to 8. Current projection is, with the adjustments that they just made by decreasing it based upon the forecast, we're still projected to receive $870,811. We're only using $750,000 in this commitment. So even if there's another drastic $100,000 drop in revenue sharing, you're not going to blow your revenue requirements. We're still good. And you'll have that. So I think that this is solid. That
So
if
we'll
you-
have enough money for projects for next year without the state not giving enough money for like transportation and things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. everything is, when your budget as conservatively as we do and as close to the vest as we do, I mean, there's not, you've known for years there's very little wiggle room in your budgets. But like I've said before, in this current situation, Fairfield's rather unique in which we don't really have a lot of outside revenue streams that are being interrupted by COVID. Your major revenue streams, three largest, I guess you could say, is revenue sharing, excise tax, but excise tax is sometimes almost double revenue sharing on vehicles, and then taxation, plain and simple. There's no big things that are missing. So, like, even though the community center is closed, it's only about $11,000 in revenue max that you could be losing throughout the course of the year. So there's not a lot of revenue loss that we are receiving because of COVID-19.
So then our decision then is to go between 4, 5, and 6. And there's like between 5 and 6, the overlay is $50,000 difference. To me, that's a lot, whereas with 4, it's $100,000 difference. And none of these, 4, 5, or 6, will raise the mill rate, correct? So do we want to have an overlay of 100,000 over number 4, or 50,000 over number 5?
And then the overlay goes directly back into the undesignated fund balance, so whatever we go over is going back in there regardless.
Right.
So how does that affect the taxpayer? Nothing, because
Nothing.
we're not changing the mill
Right.
rate.
No, we're not changing
And
the
we
mill.
can't go down, so.
Right.
So we might as well go for the gusto. My opinion.
Are you making a motion for number 6?
I make a motion that we go for
Number 6?
number 6. Yeah, because that gives us an overlay of $214,922.27, and any excess would go into the undesignated fund.
Just in case something happens.
And just in case something happens.
We do have
Life
funds
happens.
available.
Yes,
Whether or not we use all of it is,
to be seen.
Right.
right.
So
So my motion is to,
use up to $700,000 from the undesignated fund balance to offset taxes.
exactly. Thank
That's
you.
exactly what.
That's what I meant.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion?
No.
All in favor? Carries unanimously. All right. Moving on to item 20-135. Order that the town council hereby votes to amend the July 22nd, 2020 order item 20-100 to fix the dates when taxes for 2020/2021 shall be due and payable. Taxes shall be due in 4 installments, and that an annual interest rate of 8% per annum will be charged on taxes remaining unpaid after the 10th day of November for the first installment, after the 6th day of January 2021 for the second installment, after the 10th day of March 2021 for the third installment, and after the 12th day of May 2021 for the fourth installment. Now, those taxes will be mailed out hopefully by the end of next week.
I was going to tell you that, the discussion part of your motion.
That's okay. Had it written down.
So
So-
moved.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Motion and a second, and discussion.
So as you said, the plan right now is the commitment will be finalized tomorrow or Friday, as soon as the assessors are back in and we have the signed paperwork. This was our last step. And then we will send everything off to the printers. They will send us the proof. We are anticipating that because we are a little bit behind, most of the municipalities, they should hopefully get to it very quickly, and because they have the weekend. But we should have proofs and everything finalized hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, and then they'll process and go out in the mail. So we are anticipating the fact that by the end of next week, tax bills should be fully mailed out to everyone.
So we have enough money in our funds right now to fund till October 1st, anything past October
We do.
1st?
We do. So it gets a little scary around the first part of November because the county tax is due, which is almost $1 million. However, we also have the PERC CD is maturing and coming back into our accounts, so we'll have enough on-hand cash so that we know for sure we can cover our accounts at least through November, so we're fine. And as soon as, and folks are, as everybody knows, anticipating this to be coming and really looking to pay their taxes as soon as they receive their bills. And the mortgage companies will pay just as soon as we send them the process file. As soon as the commitment is done, the mortgage companies get the process file. Those that have a form in which they request it, they get those process files immediately, and those checks will start coming in. So I anticipate that we will be
Yep.
just fine.
Okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Fully carries. Now, moving on to our seventh order of business, which is council workshop and other business. First on the agenda on the seventh order of business is discuss road discontinuance of Acme Drive. Mr. Violet, come up.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for seeing me tonight. This is a discussion that had evolved from the fact that the railroad had abandoned several small streets up across from the Purple Cow, that street, and a couple others. And I think that Michelle had done some investigation for this council to look at the feasibility of taking these several small streets and abandoning them. I'm not going to put words in her mouth, but there is a state process that is mandated for abandoning a street, and it involves, probably some investment in real estate appraisals to see what that property's worth. And that property we had built and developed 25 years ago. We had taken title to that entire block, had split off the Boulette lot, and with an investment group, developed that bus garage for the town of Fairfield, leased it to them for a period of 8 years, I believe, then sold it to them so they wouldn't have to pay rent on a building for the rest of their lives. That was actually against state statute when we proposed to do that, and we had a legislature in town who took it to get the law amended that if it saved the taxpayers money, the town didn't need voter approval to proceed with the purchase that ultimately, in short term, saved the town money. So that's how it came to create that law that we sold the bus garage under a name of Fairfield Realty Associates to SAD 49. When we did that, I cut off that triangle of land, which is all the frontage on Acme Drive, which was Davis Street, which was Willow Street, which was several streets, and again, it got chopped off at the railroad tracks. So now it's just a dead-end street without a turnaround. I asked Bruce, and he has been great to deal with, not to plow, not to sand, because I'm the only one on the street. At one point in time, I got a call from Charlie Richardson 10 or 15 years ago. He wanted to put a culvert and cross my property to get to Willow Street. I said, yes, you can do that as a temporary easement, use it as you want, but it is not a permanent easement. I never signed or granted that. But they do scoot out on Acme Drive to get to 201. They don't need to. They have their own curb cut out of 201. But at the time, they could cross the tracks, hit Maple Street, and get to the schools quicker if 201 traffic was busy. When that closed off the railroad, SAD 49 no longer can take buses up to Maple Street, so they just use the 201 corridor. I have 400 and something feet, I think you have a map on that street. The SAD 49, right at the corner of 201, owns 39 feet. That's just where the line was struck and the pin was set way back when. So they don't have enough to really access the mouth of that street for any practical use, let alone turning a bus out of there, because they own 39 feet of frontage on Acme Drive, or way up near, and there's a telephone pole in the way and a stop sign. So my thought was, I've got 37,000 square feet there, 17,000 square feet. I built the car storage buildings up there, moved my office into it, wanted to build more car storage and more storage buildings, and the only way I can do that to utilize that property is I will maintain setbacks to the bus garage, I believe, which is 10 feet in that zone. But with the street abandoned, I don't have a front street setback, let alone a 50-foot street plus 25-foot setback. I can actually build storage buildings right up onto the pavement if there's no front setbacks, because I own that street. The only other abutter, other than the 39 feet to SAD 49, is Kennebec Rental. And spoke to him many times. He does not want a curb cut there. He does not want to use that frontage. He has a frontage on 201. He has security issues with his equipment, so he has no use of the frontage across from my buildings behind Kennebec Rental. He will sign off on that. I know there's a process, again, that the state requires you to look at the abutters, but I would say this to the council: would you rather see that land just sit there, or can I put buildings on it and tax me for it? The other fact is that road is in really poor condition. The paving needs to be redone. That would be a cost to the town. But if, rather than do the paving on that street and maintaining that street, which you aren't really now, there would be a savings even if the council had to reimburse some of the abutters for their frontage value changes, which again is state statute. Still be a savings to the town, plus it puts us on the tax roll. You know, do we want to support economic development and building taxes on small pieces of land by abandoning this street? I'm the only one that's affected. I will fix and pave, which I've done up at the end, mowing and cleaning up the end of the street, maintaining some of the plants up there. But it would allow me to do more car storage and more other storage, and I would like to go right down to 201 on that little triangle possibly. My oldest son wants to get into some storage unit rentals, and I think it'd be a good project, and that'd be a great place to start. So, on the discussion tonight would be, would the town look at the feasibility and the process to abandon Acme Drive for me? Don't look at the other little ones, because I believe in the last look, they were grouped together. You looked at all 2 or 3 or 4 of those streets and said, hey, the surveying costs, the state process costs, not worth it. Don't focus on the little ones that don't have economic development potential. Look at my street, which is the largest one, that has some land that could be developed for tax purposes. And, you know, I'll do a good job, complete the buildings, and I'd just like to further develop that little triangle of land that I own. And that, when we sold to SAD 49, the directors of Fairfield Realty titled me that piece of land for a minimal amount of money for putting that project together and selling it to the town of Fairfield, which was, at the time, a huge benefit to the town of Fairfield.
Didn't you sell it to the school?
Both the school districts, sorry. Did I say
That's
town?
different. They're not us.
Sorry. Yeah, they're nonprofit. Right.
They're not us.
So,
Stephanie?
I have some questions.
Go, Stephanie.
In my mind, what I'm seeing is you taking over what's there of pavement that is now called Acme Drive.
Right.
You would then have actual access to your current property as well as what you might get. Would you take up the tar that's there now in the process, or keep it there?
Because the tar is in such poor shape, it's inevitable within a matter of, Bruce would tell you, but a few years, 3 to 5 years, I would repave it and redo it, because it's going to need to be done. If I took title to it, I would have to have it redone.
Would you need to have that whole width?
I would maintain that width for several reasons. Fire access and egress, I would not change the paved lane. The paved lane is probably 22 feet. It's comfortable with vehicles passing. I wouldn't narrow that down at all. I wouldn't encroach on the pavement at all. There are utilities in that street that we have to grant easements to the water district, the sewer district, and I've extended the sewer line with Bruce's review up to my building, because I ran sewer and water to my building. And when we built the bus garage, I ran the original sewer lines down to 201 in the same manhole. And there are 2 water lines up at the street near my buildings that now services my building, but also services the bus garage. So I have easements there that I have to respect that's in my parking lot that I won't build over. And the same thing with utilities in the street. There's a large water main. Again, I ran the sewer main. I crossed it with a storm drain to improve the drainage up back coming off the bus garage. I put an underground storm drain. So up near my buildings, and all new underground power I put in along the railroad tracks, refeeding the bus garage with their own transformer pad and their own underground service. And the same thing to my building, all fed underground transformer pad, so that I took the poles down and cleaned up the wires and created a parking lot.
Well, I can see that very clearly. And so now we talk money, Kevin. So, money on the town's part. Michelle, is it going to cost us anything?
Yes.
Why?
Because what you're required to do is pay the abutters the change in land value by discontinuing a road.
But they don't own the road anyway.
No, they don't. But if you have a home that has road frontage on a town-maintained way, or if you have a home on a private dirt road, your housing values are very different. Ask any realtor, they'll tell you. So there's a value that comes with that. So what you have to do is you have to hire an appraiser to come in and say what the value of that's going to be, so the change in market value of that piece of property. In this instance, Mr. Violet's property technically becomes landlocked, so because of the fact that he doesn't actually have frontage on Route 201, so that was part of our conversations before. And then you also have to pay based upon what the maintenance cost could technically be, fraction of over the course of the next 20 years, is usually what the average is. So
The maintenance cost of plowing the road?
Of road maintenance that the town would be getting
Whereas
out
he's been
of.
doing this anyway.
Yeah, so, well, we don't talk about that because it's not necessarily a legal thing for him to do.
Okay, so,
So that's where we had left it at the last time we had this conversation. And in your packets tonight, you got everything that we had on file for this, because it's been since 2016 since we talked about it.
Right.
We did at one point in time have discussions about getting appraisals done. And that was left in the hands of our assessor, and we were waiting on feedback from them. And where it ended up, we literally do not know, because it has fallen off the face of the earth. And it may have been because of the fact that the law also changed at the same time, and it became known that it wasn't feasible to do this, or those appraisers just never got back to us. I have found, as you know, the assessor's been out for a while, and I have found her file on this, but she also has nothing after that point in time where we were waiting on follow-up from an appraiser. So we can reach back out to them if you would like. I do have a question. I have a question, actually, if I answered your question.
well, I'm just wondering if it's really Kennebec Rental that's abutting. The school district no longer owns.
No, they do own. They own that 39 feet.
That 39 feet. Is that prorated according to how much they own?
Yeah, it's basically that, yeah.
That 39
Yeah,
feet?
and
So-
there's some discussion of the fact that neither one of them would actually be affected. It would only be Mr. Violet because of the fact that both of them have frontage on 201. And
So
so
it
the
could be a moot
discontinuance of this for
subject
them
then.
would be incidental.
So, I am all for economic development in the town of Fairfield. And for me, to hear the fact that we could increase our tax base with your efforts and your business, I think it's to our advantage. I hate the thought that something 4 years ago has been left in limbo somewhere. It needs to have, we have to put a lock on it and put it away.
I was almost certain that the council had decided not to move forward with this project, but I cannot find anything on it.
I can't remember.
I can't remember,
And
but
there's
anyway.
three of us
we can
here.
do that, go back to that.
I think it got lost. It got in the shuffle.
Not sure.
Whatever happened, but I think we need to go through, have the surveying done. I don't know if there's TIF money that can do this, since we are looking at economic feasibility.
Maybe. You had originally voted to use the Public Works budget, and that might be why it ended, because the Public Works budget might not have had the funds in it to do it. By the time we heard back, we didn't have the Public Works funds for the fiscal year. That might have been why.
Yep.
But until I can have a conversation with the assessor, I do not know. But it's neither here nor there at this point.
No, it's not. So it's in our control right now as to what we want to have done. And I'm thinking that we need to have the assessment done. The thought that we might have to pay money to people, I think it could be a moot subject. I think we need to approach Kennebec Rental and the school district, see if they would mind foregoing that aspect for the sense of economic development in this area. And,
Can't.
You can't,
but we can't.
The
no.
law dictates that
We
you
have to pay.
shall do
The
this.
shall thing?
Yeah, that's part of the research that we had done, is that
Okay.
it must be done, because even Mr. Violet said that he didn't mind not having that happen either, and you can't, you don't have that option.
So we won't know how much it costs to get it surveyed or spend the money on it already, or we don't know how much it will cost?
No. Based upon all of the notes, that's where it was left, was we were waiting on what the cost for the survey was going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, are you talking about a actual field survey, or are you talking about an appraisal?
The appraisal.
Okay.
Yeah.
The survey, that's all surveyed and pinned, and it's on your tax maps. I think it's just a certified appraisal, and my experience on a small commercial project like that, $2,000 to $4,000, you can get appraisals or opinions of value through a certified appraisal to state how my parcel may be affected, and may is the word, as well as Kennebec, who does not have a curb cut and will sign off and does not want to use that street. So I would respect the utilities. But again, it's, gee, do we look at this and spend a little money and maybe get some buildings built on that unusable piece of land the way it sits right now? And the feasibility, I think, will speak to itself once you look at the value of this property. And I gladly would work with you.
Yep.
I wouldn't want the town to have to spend crazy money to facilitate this situation, and there is some language in that municipal statute that lets the town assessor, and there's some gray area on achieving those values, okay? Keep in mind that I'm not going to protest if Cindy Tuttle does the values on this thing to try to get it to look feasible. Now, the bus garage, the school, SAD 49, they're nonprofit, they don't pay taxes. I don't think that they would be reviewed in any assessment for their 39 feet because they're unaffected, it's value and tax changes. They're not affected by that.
It's market value of the property.
Of the
So
property
So
to
the
them?
property itself still has value.
Okay,
That's what it
okay.
is, so it's not tax implications.
And again, you got to think that 39 feet that they can't use,
Wouldn't amount to very
but your assessor, your appraisal would tell you that
Tell you
information.
How much land do you think would you acquire? Because there's no setback requirement for a public easement?
There is a lot setback requirement, front, side, and rears, but I have to set back from the front 25 feet from the road property line to the outermost point of a building, okay? So we've got a 50-foot strip of land, I've got to come back 25 more feet,
Right.
and in fact, I could build 25 feet of building, 300 feet long right there possibly, if I could go up to the shoulder of the road or up close to.
Because the road would have to be maintained as a public easement, so I'm curious as to how that setback requirement would go away.
Well, as soon as that road is abandoned and I took title to that road, my frontage then shows up as 50 feet on 201.
No, because you don't have 50 feet on 201.
Yeah, the road's 50
Because the
feet
road
wide.
would be split even.
Oh, no, no,
You would
no,
have to
no,
get the
no.
deeds
There's
from
no-
the other two.
There's no split. Kennebec Rental does not want the land, won't use the land, has no interest in that land.
Right, so they would have to sell that property to you.
Oh, well, that I don't think is correct. I believe that you're talking about the fact that you're splitting the road through these abutters, and if he doesn't want it, and you can't title it all to me, I'll cut a deal with him for $1 and other considerations. And again, if you have to split it in the middle, he does not want a road down over that bank to his back lot.
So what happens is that road becomes a private easement.
Yep.
I mean, a public easement, sorry, because the utilities are in it.
That's correct?
And then it does get split right down the center line.
Fine.
Goes to each
Then
other.
David Wilson
So
and
then
I-
what would have to happen is that they in turn would have to sell that to you, and the municipality would have to know that those deeds are on file
Oh, absolutely.
before they could actually do that, because they can't disconnect a road and make you landlocked.
Okay, but
Kind of.
his...
But because the public easement is there, then you don't have frontage on 201, is what I'm saying,
No.
if you don't purchase that.
Okay. David Wilson does, produce it and sign and in writing, whatever you want, but he does not want or need that 12-foot strip of land, because if you think about it, and I think you did the scenario on me once before, you said, hey, you own half the road, David owns half the road. What if he puts a fence right down the middle of the road? I said, can't do it. It's utilities, there's an easement. Nobody can block the road
Right.
for fire trucks, police, access, all those kind of reasons. So therefore, even if David was to take title to 12 feet of road, and he doesn't want to take the curb cut down to his lot, you can't do anything with it, you can't block it, it's an easement that, for utilities, for water, sewer, and everything. So he said, no, I don't want it, you take it, I'll buy it, whatever, not a problem. But if I owned both halves, I then own 50 feet on 201, and then I have a
But it's still an
compliant
easement, you
lot.
can't build in it.
Not building on the road.
But don't you still have to have the setback from the easement?
No, I could have, if I owned the road, my setback can be the edge of the pavement.
But the public easement is still the entire length of the road, so
It
wouldn't
is-
your
it is-
setback be
It is
the
not a
easement?
public easement because the public has no business up there unless they're coming to my office. It is a utility easement, which is completely different.
No, so the law changed a couple of years ago, and maybe you haven't seen the new version, but it's a public easement.
What would the public go up there for?
Well, that's how you maintain the access to the utilities, and that's how road discontinuance is now done, unless they completely abandoned the easement, which would require the deed filings from the school and Kennebec Rental giving you ownership of that frontage.
Okay,
Okay, so there's some nuances that changed since the last time we discussed this in 16. I think this happened in, most of them happened in 2017. The law had all changed. So there's different things in there. But anyway, I was curious because I thought there was a setback requirement from a public easement just the same as there would be from a
no,
road.
Bruce can speak to that. If there's an easement, a sewer line across a property, and there's a sewer line easement there, there's no 50-foot setback from that easement.
Typically, we maintain 50 feet, either about 15 feet.
Each side of a pipe.
Yeah, yeah, it
We
depends
do
on how.
not have sewer on that street.
Right,
Oh,
it's water.
Okay, I do.
You have.
He owns it, but yeah.
We do, the town of Fairfield does not have sewer up there. I'm not sure that the water district has a main that runs up there.
Oh, they do.
They do.
It's fairly large.
Yeah.
I thought I showed you when we did our sewer tap.
You check it.
Cast iron, yep, yep. And it goes under the tracks. Yep. And there's a shut-off, blue painted up the
The only
street.
thing that would affect the town of Fairfield sewer would be within the right of way of 201, so there would be no.
Right,
easement.
because he'd be responsible for the sewer, but we'd have to maintain utilities for the water district, phone and electric that goes up through
Yeah.
there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Wouldn't ask any other way. But again, it just seems sad that we have this, we haven't used it, we haven't answered, we haven't looked at it, we haven't made an attempt, and I'd like to develop over there.
Michelle, can you get the answers to those questions and?
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do is, I haven't had an opportunity, because we pulled all of this stuff when this came up, is I have the list of the firms that we had contacted for the appraisal. I'm actually gonna call them directly and see if they have any insight as to what happened. Were we on their work list and fell through the cracks, or did it not actually come to fruition? Because I've searched everywhere, and I have no email regarding an appraisal or anything like that. So I'll contact them and get that information for you.
And a certain definition of what is required for us to have the easement, of what amount of property we need to maintain, where setbacks are, access, what the
Yeah.
For utilities.
defined requirements are for us to do that. I mean, if this ends up being a patch of grass going up through there, as long as you can get through it with a vehicle,
Right.
who cares?
Right.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be a paved road, does it, if you can get up through
No,
there?
I don't think so, because you gotta have to think about the fact that you can discontinue a road that's not paved now. So there's
Right.
nothing saying that it has to stay in its exact condition in which you left it.
So that could be turned into grass, and as long
Right.
as you can get up through there to get the water out of it, to get to the water lines or utilities.
Right.
Okay.
Is it just a utility easement that we're looking at? Mm-hmm. Just that, right?
I believe so.
So the new,
And keep in mind that that existing paved road is at the old Davis Street. I would leave that, I wouldn't narrow it, I wouldn't change it, because that's my access to my office as well as my car storage facility.
Right, what I'm saying is, regardless of if we discontinue, if you wanted to turn 3/4 of it into grassland, as long as there's nothing over it and there is access to the water lines and the overhead utilities,
Absolutely.
I mean, then it could be grass, it could be whatever it wanted to be, and you could have a 12-foot wide driveway up through there.
Respecting the utility easements.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I almost think that it's something we look at, but the money that we have to spend in producing this and that, which I definitely think we need to move forward on, could probably come out of a TIF, because it is a commercial unit that Mr. Violet is talking about, moving up and increasing and doing
I'll have
commercial.
to look, there's no TIF district there.
There's no 201 TIF district?
That's not property, none of that property is included in that, so I,
Gas line go by there?
no. That's why I don't know is if it would fall in line with any of our stuff for our TIF districts where you can do stuff outside of a district. I've got to look.
Okay.
I don't think it does, because we didn't opt to use that the last time. I think that's why you had to use what was left over of Public Works funds, but I can have that information for you at the next meeting when we get the rest of this to follow up, so.
Okay.
Small steps, right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
All right, we're moving on to the second order of business
Speaking of,
under our council workshop would be to discuss affordable housing TIF.
So, I provided, council should have received a memo in their packet
Yep.
regarding the affordable housing TIF that we have. This TIF district was created in 2006. Nothing has happened in it. It includes the property on Mountain Ave and a vacant piece of land on Bray Avenue in Shawmut.
Right.
There is, as we discussed when we were discussing housing in your comprehensive plan, there is a senior housing project that's actually looking to go on to the Mountain Ave property in the old sanatorium. They recently went to the planning board, adjusted their subdivision from a 25 to a 27 unit. They're in the process right now of filing for their funding, which is going to come from various different sources. But one of the things they're looking and have requested is whether or not we could amend the TIF district so to change the date of expiration. And like I said, there's been no activity in this district whatsoever. But before precious time and energy was spent on amending this process, I wanted to run it by council first to make sure there wasn't anything anybody was opposed to, and whether or not we should go forward with that, so.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Any outcome from Monday night's planning board meeting? 'Cause this was discussed on Monday night.
Yes, I'm aware, yeah. So they had that's what I said, where they just recently amended from 25 to 27. So they had previously been approved. They were hoping to get a grant that was part of a big federal package for senior housing. and their project was not selected. The local project that was selected, I believe, was a housing project being done by KV Cap in Heartland. And so they were not able to get this project. But they've continued to source their funding. They actually have that in place. They've gotten historical credits, they've gotten low-income housing credits, a couple of different things. And this TIF would be helpful to them. So we certainly can go forward to this. I've actually spoke to the people. These are a little bit different because it's not the Department of Economic and Community Development that you deal with, like with most TIFs. These actually go through the Maine State Housing Authority. So we should be able to go through and get it done.
What's the lot on Bray Avenue? That's,
So it's vacant. I can't,
I can explain.
he knows the landscape up there better than I do.
You know where the old school is, Mike?
yeah.
The
Just
microphone
beyond
is
it.
Oh, just beyond the old school?
just beyond the old school, yes.
Okay. And we're planning on doing,
It's a Maine State Housing Authority piece of, Waterville Housing Authority piece of property, and it's a Waterville housing project. We don't know whether or not the current executive director of Waterville Housing Authority knows that it's a project. And that was part of mine and Garvin's discussions today when we had general overall housing conversations today. So not just the town farm, but we also discussed this TIF and this process and that kind of stuff, so.
if they don't plan on doing anything with it, then
Nothing happens.
dump it, sell it,
It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to them.
belongs to them. We sold it to them?
No, it's always belonged to them. It's just a TIF district that encompasses their property, just like our TIF district encompasses all kinds of properties up 201 and Industrial Road. It's
Right.
just- It's an opportunity for development in that area, but it belongs to them. They pay taxes on it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just nobody, the thing to remember is that when this was created in 2006, so the fiscal year that it hit was 2007, 2008, is when the housing market absolutely imploded. And I'm relatively certain that's the reason why nothing has ever happened within this housing district. So now that there's a demand for housing, the market's changed a little bit, and there's some new players involved, especially with the Mountain Ave property. There's a developer out of Portland that's working on this project. So that's why you've seen that uptick. And because the demand for senior housing is huge all over the state, this is a perfect project for up there, and it's exactly what this TIF was created for, so it's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, we'll start on that.
All right, very good. Moving on to number 3, which is discuss comprehensive plan transportation. And I will ask Ms. Thibodeau to
Well,
bring it through.
thank you, John. Okay, transportation. And when the comprehensive plan was rewritten in 2014, it was, basically, we were thinking about taking our road system to the 21st century and be having bike lanes, and we know that didn't happen. So the first goal was to maintain a safe and convenient intermodal transportation system in the most cost-effective manner within budgetary constraints of the town. And when I thought about transportation and how things are in town, we've always been praised for how well our roads are maintained. And that has always been a feather in our bonnet. Growing up in Fairfield on High Street, we always had sidewalks. That's not happening much anymore on the side streets. So that, in my mind, that's how I see how things have evolved. And then prior to the meeting, we were given Nicole's description of this particular item in the comprehensive plan. And I didn't think we were in such bad shape until I started reading what Nicole said. And I do want to thank Nicole for doing this, because it's always good to get another person's outlook, especially with her position and knowing the regulations and everything. So she took some time to address the first objective, which was to maintain an adequate funding on local roads. And she believes that the fund, we're not keeping up with the funding. And I have always thought it was such a great idea that we would have a cycle where Public Works would go in and take care of the roads. And then this year, we were going to start on the south end and start redoing the side streets with Cottage Street and move our way in. I could just see it happening. But the thing is, the funding is not there. So, and she's suggesting a bond. So what I would like to suggest is that we put this on another item as we get ready for the budget for next year, and see if that's something we want to do.
She's not suggesting a bond. She just mentioned the fact that we did a bond in 2011.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is basically, when this statement from the code enforcement officer is the take from the planning board side of it, and that's always part of their conversations.
Oh.
But she just mentions the fact that we did a bond. Well, she does say a bond question to the residents in 2021, but
Right.
you're still paying for your last bond for roads.
So we're not
No,
there.
there's no way that we're going anywhere near that.
All right, so anyway,
I mean, you
something
can,
for the
but-
future. Maybe we do need to get caught up a little bit on our roads, but
How much do you want taxes to go up?
I don't want taxes to go up.
Okay, the roads are good then.
The roads are good. Darn good, yes.
Okay.
The next objective was to participate in DOT funding solutions, and we have been doing that as much as we can, right down to the fact where you had to dicker this year to get the Western Avenue intersection fixed up, but then it took a toll on Center Road, and you could see where the tar went down here because they're not matched. I mean, we have to do what we have to do, and it's a work in progress with DOT all the time.
And we also have the current municipal partnership project that we're working on to have West and Savage Street done.
That's
So
right.
that falls in
Yeah,
there.
and that's going
half
in.
funded by, well, it was half funded under the original estimate when we got the grant. It's not half funded by DOT anymore, but
No, but it's ongoing.
It is.
And we're doing a good job with that. The next objective was talking about review access and parking standards, and this is going along with the laws, and we do a good job with that, but there's also another part that comes in, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when we're talking about maintaining a safe and attractive pedestrian bicycle network. We've maintained, since 2014, we've made some gains. We have parking signs for down here. We still have an issue with parking on Main Street, and Nicole is suggesting maybe at some point we take a look at the kinds of signage that we use, making it more consistent so that people can see it. I think that's of value. The big thing, it's money. And is there really a need for it at this point? Main Street, there's not a lot happening on Main Street right now. But if we had better signage, would it make a difference?
They just need to pay attention to.
Yeah,
If we have
and
the
that
signage.
too. Yeah.
But people don't
there's
get to know.
only one storefront that is not occupied right
I
here in the
know.
general Main Street area.
Ugh,
Think positively.
I know. It's, but you, when you.
And it's not
grew
for
up
lack
here and you
of
remember the
trying.
5 and dime, it's not,
There
it's not.
currently isn't any available space for development in the Main Street
I
track.
know.
So if somebody new wants to come to town, and there have been multiple, there's no place for them to go.
No, but they can build a nice building right on a corner, nice
At the
corner
jig
there.
out lot, yeah.
They could. You're absolutely
true.
correct.
So looking at the rest of that goal, we're looking at a lot of cost factors, safe pedestrian walkways. I think we need to talk about that. What do we really want to do with our side streets? There are more walkers today than there were 15 years ago. Are they safe enough? West Street's going to have the best sidewalks in town. Thank you, Bruce. And What about Main Street? When you have down at the southern end, you've got a telephone pole in the middle of the sidewalk, that's not safe.
Do
So-
people walk into it on a regular basis, or
In the wintertime, it's an issue. because
they
you've got
fall,
snow.
they hit the phone pole, or?
Well, it's actually in the middle, it's down by, you know where it is. You're teasing me. So,
They have a pedestrian collision with a phone pole on Main Street?
you could have, yes, it is right in the middle. So I think we're aware of this, we just need to know what do we want to do with that. So when it comes time to take a look again at the comprehensive plan and transportation, I'd like to see what DOT's plan is. It's over 6 years old now, since we have already talked with them about down around High Street, Main Street, what's going to happen. It's in the books, but where in the books? Maybe you could give them a call and see what their plan is. It's still hanging. So overall, a B- for this section. We don't have a bicycle path at all. Is it really something that we want? I think our routes are safe when it comes to the schools. The schools mark the roads, and they have the signage up. I think that's no problem there. So, and I think the Economic Committee should also review at some point the configuration for the Bridge Street. I don't have any problem with it myself. I was just behind 2 vehicles today that decided to go right over that raised-up area to go over. And I think we're doing fine. We have how many cars a day? 10,000?
16,000.
16,000 cars.
I was actually curious why the Bridge Street, Main Street reconfiguration was in here, considering it had just been done when the bridges were done.
It had,
Right.
it was, what, I'm trying to think back. It was in the works at the time that this was done, because it's been there since this was written, but not long after. So to me, that's what it was, because to me, it's fine.
Because I'm, like, the current configuration has been there since the bridges were finished, and the bridges were finished in 2008.
Right. And
And this was done in, what, 14?
14.
Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
like, why, I didn't know what the back history was as to
No.
why this was even in here.
I don't know either. It was there when we did it, so I don't know. I
Couple
really don't know.
Well, other things to follow up on, like you mentioned, there is a plan that's been put in place about a change in Main Street all the way through College Ave into Waterville's, which addresses the Winter Street and High Street project.
Right.
We do have a brand-new engineer for Region 2. We're playing phone tag right now for me to actually have a conversation with him, but hopefully I can get some updates on some of these DOT projects, or at least definitely remind him that they're out there somewhere, and because he's new, hopefully he'll follow up on those. We've had conversations with folks at the state regarding the Safe Routes to School funding, which of course will pay for sidewalks. However, you have to be within X number of feet, miles of the school, and be able to prove that you, by replacing that sidewalk, they will have a better transportation ability. It gets a little tricky when we deal with the age group of being high school, junior high, as opposed to most of our elementary students actually being in Benton. It was kind of a nuance that was picked up on. But anyway, that's something that we are actively doing. The bicycle pedestrian plan, I do believe that was actually recently finished by KV-COG in 2018. They had a grant from DOT to actually do that, and it included parts of this Route 2 corridor and various different trails. And I'll follow up on that, but I do believe that was one of the last projects Chris Huck did before he retired from KV-COG.
For Route 201?
Yeah, it included that, and it included the Main Street area and going up through some of the major routes and connecting up through. And then the next section, it talks about, training public works on
Right, and that should
erosion
be
control.
done.
And that's ongoing and constant. And erosion control measures are something that we always have in all of our contracts. If we have outside contractors coming in, and habitat protection, of course, everybody knows no municipality can sneeze next to a wetland without DOT showing up. So DEP showing up. So other than that, I think they're pretty good.
But overall, I agree. We're doing pretty good. And thinking about the bridge thing, it seems to me had to do with pedestrian crossings to make them safer. It is really hard to cross there, but
And to follow up on the
know.
funding piece at the very beginning that we talked about, so remember, as a town, you increase your funding for paving by $10,000 every single year, and you've set it up so that whatever you don't use stays in the fund, continues to roll, and keep doing that,
Right.
which is a good plan. Since you've done the bond, you have become cognizant of the fact that we're not putting money away. I worked in a municipality where we spent $500,000 a year on road maintenance for reconstruction and whatnot, and everybody still said that was never enough. So, I mean, it's one thing to say that you're not spending enough, but are you doing it in a safe manner in which you're maintaining your mill rate, but yet still maintaining your roads? Are we quite where we need to be for the full amount? No, but we're getting there. And I think, like this year's project of using undesignated fund balance money for specific in-town streets, because your undesignated fund balance was healthy. Does that mean it's going to be there again next year? We think so, but who knows what the year's going to bring. But you constantly look at that every single year. And that's part of the process about the recommendation when it comes to the paving budget and what projects are coming forward. While there may be a plan of what we're looking at year after year, things change. Mother Nature is crazy, and sometimes what you think is a project that's 3 years down the road is immediate. Sometimes you have a road you just rebuilt and you have to go back in and rebuild it again because something washed it out. So it is a fluid project, but it is something we're definitely cognizant of and we do look at constantly. So it's a lot of money, but it's important, because if you don't maintain it, nobody else goes to work to make money and nobody goes to school, so.
one of the things that, and I was just as an afterthought, when we've talked about West Street and the big trucks going down West Street, and posting our roads more, is that something that should be looked into the future?
So, yeah, some of it becomes nuances where like West and Savage are actually state roads.
Right.
Newhall is a
So, you know,
state
it's a
road.
choice.
It's like,
Right.
they're not really our streets. We can make recommendations and get
Yeah.
them to approve. I mean, they're within the compact zone, so probably. But then you also have to remember that you have, again, there are businesses out there. So, and there's land that is zoned for them to be able to have businesses out off from Savage Street.
Right.
So if you come back and say there's absolutely no truck traffic allowed on Savage, what kind of business are you going to have?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be grandfathering the businesses that are currently there because you can't stop them. So you have to have an eye to both measures and try to keep an eye on both of them. Strike a
Yeah,
balance.
I mean, we've got the situation where we're going to take Cottage Street with, put no through trucks.
Right.
So, and a military, with no through trucks because of the, that type of stuff, and force them onto those state roads, and they have to stay there and can't cut up and down the streets, which they do now.
So it'd be B-, not bad.
All right. Number 4, discuss any other council business. Does anybody have anything?
Nothing.
I got something, yeah. Just came to my attention by some residents about hours of the town, at the town office, especially after, a lot of people get out of work after 4 o'clock. And a lot of them have stopped me on the side of the street, mentioned why can't the town office be opened after certain hours, just once a week? You start, open up later during the day, then close a little later, just to come in to pay their bills and things like that. Because a lot of them do not do the computer or the internet.
We looked at that before, not that long ago.
What's that?
I said
Yeah.
we looked into that not that long ago, and it wasn't wasn't anything that we were doing. And I know it's been study about it before. So our current hours, of course, are diminished because of COVID. Staff are there, but because of the way we have to work and do things, we're closed a little bit more so that they have time to do the emails, the voicemails, that sort of stuff. And there are all those abilities in which folks can either, they don't have to pay on the computer. You can mail a payment in, you can call us, we can do things right over the phone. There's all kinds of things that we can do, and we've made arrangements for people if they needed special circumstances. Like sometimes there are folks who can't get here until late, and we'll tell them, on this day, we'll be here at least until 6 o'clock, until the council meeting, and they'll come in and do that, or folks have made it for them. But keeping the office open and the staff there and closing early and then staying late wasn't serving as many people as what we would stop serving by closing in the morning.
Is there any chances, I know the COVID's made the time different from 10 to 3. When will that be lifted?
So we were looking at actually trying to lift that after Labor Day and to stop having, because remember, we currently have library staff that sit, they take turns floating during that time frame to help monitor the door. So we were looking at trying to do that after Labor Day. Well, it just so happened that the week before Labor Day, the sheer disrespect and ugliness that was received by the town staff from members of the community about standing in line or waiting their turn or following the flow of traffic, wearing a mask, all of that was so horrific that, it was multiple people. I don't know whether it was a full moon that week or what, but it made us instantly stop and rethink our plan to switch and try to go back to normal hours because it was terrible.
Because people are tired of 10 to 3.
Oh,
They
trust
are.
me, we're all tired of 10 to 3.
Yeah.
We all are. Yep. But it's difficult to tell someone who stood in line for 20 minutes to wait in the middle of doing their car registration while somebody goes and answers the phone. Or tell someone they have to wait in line for an additional 20 minutes because you need to be stuck on the phone with someone who called in between customers. So the buffer that we have in the morning is so that staff can do those email searches, process the mail, return voicemails, answer questions, do those special pieces of people who can't come in with a mask that we can meet and make special accommodations with. That's what that time frame is from 8:30 to 10, so we can get all of that stuff done, because when a customer stands in line, when they're able to get to the counter, they deserve our undivided attention, and they shouldn't have to wait for anything. So that's why we have scheduled this way, because if I stood in line and waited for 20 minutes, I finally get there and you're half in the middle of my car registration, and I say, excuse me, I have to go answer this phone and take care of that person's issue, well, that's just horrid. Or, sorry, I'm now processing this huge tax payment, you're gonna need to wait until I'm done. So that's why the scheduling is the way that it is right now. And then by closing at 3, it gives them the opportunity to do the end of day stuff. Plus, we have scheduled meetings. We have people that we wait on right up until the time that the girls leave. It's just they're folks that we meet in the parking lot, or it's people who can't come in with a mask and need to come in by themselves in isolation and that sort of stuff. So we're still working. And if folks can't meet that time frame, they certainly should call us and we can see what we can do to help accommodate them. But this seems to be the best way that we can, and it's part of the plan, the COVID plan that we had, that council had approved, in order to fulfill everybody's needs and still do it safely.
Also, too, is any chance to relook at the budget and restructure how the budget is restructured before the departments come up in December?
Restructure how?
On just bringing up a council workshop on how to minimize or try to save money or things like that, restructuring the budget.
The council can always discuss the budget at any time. if the council wants the next budget on the agenda, you certainly can do that. You have the opportunity to discuss the budget at any time.
What are you looking at restructuring?
I don't know, because the budget, just to look at even just different areas, to have a workshop, have a brainstorm and try to restructure it. I don't know which part. Right now, just sit there and just think about it, how to restructure.
I guess I'm not understanding the definition of restructure. Work with me here. To cut the budget, I don't understand.
Just try to find a way to save money, not taxes always going up, or things like that. Just sit there and brainstorm and come up with new ideas.
Okay. All right, so reevaluate how
Right,
the budget.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Is that all right? Anybody else? All right. The next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, October 14th, 2020, to be held as a hybrid meeting via Zoom in council chambers at 6:30. We will now go into a recess to sign all documents that required of signatures and council members.
Need a motion.
Motion to go into recess.
Second?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.